And good afternoon, everybody watching.
Thank you. Sharon Coons is now joining the conference.
Who's that?
Sharon Coons.
Okay. Thank you for joining us. It's April the 2nd, 2020, and this is the Board of County Commissioners Board work session on the docket follow-up and on public comment. And we'll do introductions first. I'm John Hutchings, the chair of the board.
Time answer.
Gary Edwards.
Ramiro Chavez.
Jennifer Davis, CPED.
Joshua Cummings, CPED.
Robin
Campbell, Assistant County Manager.
All right, thank you. Thank you for being here. And I'll begin with saying that this is a review on all the public comment that's been received on the docket because the public comment period is closed. When did that close?
Closed March 4th.
March 4th, okay. And so no more public comment on this topic is accepted. But we did receive an email from a citizen who wants it to be part of the record regarding the process that we're having this meeting. And so I'll just note that I have it here and it will become part of the process, part of the public record. And so with that, we're going to move on. And you want to frame this, Ramiro, or move on?
Yeah, Commissioners, thank you. Staff is going to take over, but this is just the beginning of your decision-making process related to the 2020-2021 docketing process. It is not expected for you to make a decision on what items will go on the docket today. That is not the expectation of you. And again, this is just the beginning of your decision-making process that hopefully that will be culminated, depending on how that goes, sometime in early May. That is hopefully a good expectation. So that's all I'd like to say to open up this briefing.
So no decisions today, and then there's a follow-up. If we don't get it all in today, then on April 15th is the backup plan to get the rest of this information to us?
Right.
Okay. Commissioner Edwards, you have a question?
Just for clarification, you said this topic. Is there just one, or did you mean these topics? I'm just curious. Are we locked in on just one topic?
Well, the docket's follow-up.
Okay.
I mean, there's several, of course, in there, but.
Yeah, okay, good enough. I thought we were maybe focusing in on one issue.
Oh, no.
Sorry, I misunderstood. Thank you.
There's a lot of issues that we'll be talking about today, don't worry.
Yeah, so I'll just follow on. Again, Joshua Cummings, the Director of Community Planning and Economic Development. So two things, as the county manager mentioned, there is a decision needed, and that decision is what the board wants us to be working on for the docket, but that decision is not needed today. So you'll see on your briefing packet, it's marked decision needed because there will at some point be a decision needed, but not today. And then the other thing I'd like to just mention before Jennifer dives in, we've worked really hard, Jennifer and her team have worked really hard to provide in the values of CPED, transparency, consistency, and accountability. And working head and shoulders above to try and provide all of the transparency on each one of these issues that's important to our community as we plan for the future, and to citizens that have initiated their own requests for how we use the land and have building in Thurston County. So this is a really important part of how we continue to see ourselves as a community and our opportunity to facilitate that conversation about what the citizens locally want us to be going forward. So if we keep in mind that this is staff, CPED, facilitating the conversation for you, Board of County Commissioners, to understand more clearly what more we should be getting information on. And so it's weird for me to say proud, but the CPED team has done an amazing job at honoring the values of consistency and transparency. And the information that you have is one of the best docketing processes I've seen put together since my time as director. So as we get into this, know there's a lot of information, but it's all in those packets, and any other questions you have, Jennifer and her team on the Zoom are available to answer.
Absolutely. Okay, so I'm gonna dive right in. So this is a follow-up briefing to your annual docketing briefing that was held February 6th, which seems like 10 years ago at this point, but it wasn't that long ago. But since your first briefing on this new docketing cycle, annual docketing cycle, we've been marching forward with all the required steps in the docketing process. And you'll remember this slide from before. It gives a sense of these steps that starts out with our preliminary docket review, which you did, a 20-day written public comment period, which we held and which was concluded on March 4th. And now we're at the step of the board reviews the written comments, and then that bleeds into the board gives direction on setting the official docket. So the you are here arrow is showing us where we are on the ladder, but the final 4 steps on this ladder happen quite quickly once you make your decisions on what you want to move forward to the official docket. We provided you a lot of information in your briefing packet. It included summary information about each item from the preliminary docket, all the public comments received. You were provided links to look at those actual public comments, which were scanned in, and there were many hundreds of them, and we'll go through some of the highlights. And then you were given summary information for each proposed docket item. That is what basically makes up your briefing packet. And I'm going to walk you through all of it, so don't think you have to kind of know it all at once, because it's a lot of information, and I realize that. So the purpose of this work session, again, is to go over all the public comment we received on the preliminary dockets that were published back in February, to answer any questions you may have, and ultimately for you to do your deliberations or begin them about items you want to maybe move forward onto your official docket. Once you make that decision, which again doesn't need to happen today, and we have this follow-up briefing scheduled for April 15th, but once you make the decision about what you want to move forward to the official docket of work, that will be followed up by a Tuesday action at one of your regularly scheduled meetings. We will submit an AIS, and we will have you take action to adopt the official docket, and then we will do all the follow-up noticing that goes along with that. So today and moving forward, you have your full scope of decision-making available to you. If you'll recall back in February, it wasn't the time to decide yes or no on any of these proposals. Now we're at that time where you can decide what to move forward and legislate. The 3 decisions again are for each proposal, you may select it to move forward to the official 2020-2021 dockets, or you may decide to keep the proposal on a preliminary docket for possible future work, most likely after 2021. Or you may drop a proposal completely from the docket because you just don't want to legislate it at all.
And so that's yes, hold, no.
So I want to emphasize here that by putting something on the official docket, that means that's what staff is going to be working on. We're going to be working on those items all the way through the end of 2021 and trying to complete them by the end of 2021. Holding something, keeping it on the preliminary docket means it's a little bit in limbo. We may get back to it later as priorities of the board change, staff capacity, time moves along, but it doesn't kill the proposal. And the final one is the no. As Josh said, you aren't interested in legislating it at all. So, moving forward, in order to make these difficult decisions, because I know they're difficult, taking a look at what the public had to say is critical, and that's kind of the whole crux and importance of this docketing process. It's all about public participation and allowing folks to comment. And we may have hit a record because we received over 1,400 comments on this docket. That's the most I've heard of. Over 700 were new comments received just within our February 13th to March 4th written comment period. We also gave you the 748 additional comments that we had received on the docket prior to our official docketing period. So we were honoring all of the work that citizens did to write in and have comments on proposals. One of our proposals had an additional 6,000 signatures on a petition, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. The items that had the most public comment received in by staff are listed here, and they are the transfer of development rights program and sort of combined with our citizen initiated review of our agricultural policy and land designations. So that's one item if you mush them together.
Are these in order of the most comments and the least comments?
They are not.
Okay,
They are in order of how I'm going to talk about them though,
okay, thank
if
you.
that's okay with you.
Mhm.
The second item with the most comments were the North Point Maytown land use amendment proposal, which I'll get into more detail on in a minute. The third was the Cascade Resort. It was about resort sizes for retreats and resorts in rural Thurston County and making those allowable sizes larger.
When you say the third, is
Third on
there-
the list.
Yeah, there's a number here of how many comments on each one of these somewhere?
I'll-
I'm just missing that.
There is in your briefing materials. I will, I'm gonna get to those in just a second. I'll actually tell you those verbally in a minute. We also provided you a comment matrix that summarizes in your briefing materials how many were for each, but I'm gonna go over those in just a minute.
And as she related, they're in order in which she is gonna refer to them, not
Right.
in order of how many comments were received.
Right. And then the fourth we received most comments on were the Johnson Smokehouse amendment, which is about allowing larger sized commercial smokehouses throughout rural Thurston County. So I'm gonna describe each one of those in a little more detail now. So for the first one on this list, the transfer of development rights in the agricultural review item, a total of 62 comments were received. 22 of those were focused on transfer of development rights. Folks, they were all in support. Folks wanted to see this program worked on to protect more farmland because farmland is shrinking rapidly. They liked the TDR program and how it's set up to function. Olympia Master Builders said they like how it aids on the housing supply side in urban growth areas. And 18 of those comments actually said you should combine this with the community-driven review of agriculture, which is something that sounds like a good idea to us as well.
Can I ask a question?
Please, yeah.
Sure.
On that issue, is that the one where we classify farmland as 20 acres and more, and other jurisdictions use 5 acres and more? Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, so let me answer it this way. We have different types of farmland in Thurston County. We have farmland on tiny lots, we have farmland on giant lots. We have actually designated farmland of long-term commercial significance. And then a lot of our farming happens outside of those areas. It happens in our rural residential resource, 1 unit per 5 acre. It happens in our 1 unit per 10 acre zoning. So the zoning that's specifically to farmland of long-term commercial significance is part of what these programs look at.
And that's 20 acres or more? I'm
Yeah.
trying to figure in the count. We keep talking about a reduction in size. Many counties use 5 acres or more, but I'm told Thurston County uses 20 acres or more.
To designate farmland for long-term commercial significance, is
I
that
am.
what you're asking?
I'm not sure. The Ag Committee is the one that brought that to my attention, that we're kind of out of sync with other counties, and I'm just trying to figure that out.
Perfect. So I'm glad they said that to you. I'm not prepared today to get into the nitty-gritty details of every proposal, but what you're saying rings true for why we need to look at how we designate long-term commercial agriculture or regular agriculture, what our zoning designations are, how large the lot sizes are, and the Ag Committee would be an essential part of that process.
So remember, this is the list of the things you want us to get more information on. And so when you're asking about the details for more information, the first step would be say, go get more information.
Totally.
Okay,
That's where we are.
I was in attendance at a Ag Committee meeting, and I think you might have been in attendance at that one too, when that particular topic was brought up. So I'm just trying
Yeah.
to clarify
Yeah.
how that fits. Thank you very much.
It fits perfectly. It fits perfectly actually in the CPA 16, the agricultural review. So we got 40 comments on that, and one of those comments was from the Ag Committee, which are talking about how long-term ag designated land, non-designated land, it's all important to farming. It's all important to farmland. So it all needs to be looked at as you look at your policies, your zoning, your programs, incentive programs, economic programs. that's what a lot of folks want us to look at with this large kind of agriculture review project. And I think that's why we got 62 total comments on this.
So
And
Jennifer, let me just make sure we're on the same page.
Mhm.
So out of all the 62, everybody asked that the commissioners put it on the list for us to look at.
Right. Correct.
Okay.
There were no comments received that opposed the idea of us looking at agriculture and doing more to support agriculture.
Remember, the decision is yes, hold, no. Everybody said yes, that commented on the ag and transfer development rights.
Yep. Does that help? Okay. So the next item I wanted to talk about was the North Point Maytown Land Use Amendment. We had 748 comments come in, including 6,000 petition signatures. Those were received between February 2019, and February 2020. We've had a lot of interest in this for a long time, so we received comments all throughout the year and bundled them up, and you have access to those through the links we've provided you in your briefing materials. Of those comments, 8 were in support of this particular land use amendment, and the rest of them were opposed. And I wanted to give you a sense of the themes that both the pro and the con folks were talking about in their comments. The pro commenters were talking about that this land use amendment provides the county with economic development opportunity, more tax revenue, supports growth, housing, economic development, like I said, money for parks. And then the comments against putting this proposal on the docket, the themes were that it would hurt rural character, it would put environmentally sensitive areas at risk, it was disruptive to wildlife and habitat, it would have impacts to water supply, aquifer, private wells, impacts to visual aesthetics, impacts to nearby recreation opportunities at Miller Sylvania Park and Rocky Prairie Preserve, impacts to air pollution, traffic noise and lighting, and the rural lifestyle. It would cause safety issues on the roadways near the site, and they would no longer be bike friendly. A commenter, or probably multiple commenters, cited that an operation like this should be closer to the interstate, and they were concerned with the impacts to property values. So those were the basic buckets of comments on this.
Thank you for that. I asked for those buckets, and I'm glad you did. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks to Maya for helping me find the buckets.
Thank you, Maya. Is that broken out also in the, or is it just the comments on the link?
The matrix breaks out. You have a summary sheet in your briefing materials that kind of talks about the major themes.
Okay.
And then you have a matrix that you can actually read kind of brief summaries of each individual's comments.
Okay.
And then you have finally the actual comments that were
Okay.
received.
Do you have any questions or comments? Yeah, any comments or questions? Okay.
And so, just saying that again, you get to decide how deeply you want to get, but all of the information is there.
Okay.
So the next item that received a lot of comments that I'll talk about was the, we call it the Cascade Resort Amendment. That's just the name of one of the applicants, although it would be to adjust our development regulations to again increase the building size for resorts and retreats throughout the county. We received 20 comments supportive of this amendment, none in opposition. The themes of those comments were that resorts like this serve the community, support growth and economic development, bring business to the local area, and particular to Cascade Camp, they would allow them to finish their original planned investments under their master plan. And then
So again, that was 20 yes and 0 no
Yep.
to add to the list.
And then for Johnson Smokehouse, which again is more than just about Johnson Smokehouse, it's about adjusting our development regulations to allow commercial smokehouses of larger sizes than previously allowed throughout the county. We received 434 comments in support and only 1 comment in opposition. And the comments cited the following themes. This would support small local businesses. This particular business has served the community for years. We don't want to penalize their misfortune because, as you realize, they had a fire. The business is a local attraction. The businesses like this are important to the local economy and bring in tax revenue and provide jobs.
What was the opposition?
Yeah, what was the negative one?
I don't have that written here.
Maya, do you have that handy?
Yeah, I can chime in. So the only negative comment that we were, can you hear me okay?
Now we can.
Yay.
The only negative comment that we received said that they should not get any sort of special treatment.
Any what?
Special trees.
Any
Special
sort of
treatment?
special treatment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Maya. I got my squad up there. Maya Teeple, I have Brett Burris, we have Travis.
Oh, we should have introduced them up front too.
I know.
Yeah, I missed that,
Well,
darn it.
They got your back.
They literally have my back. I hope the back of me looks okay. Okay.
You're awesome.
So I want to get into we're throwing a lot of information at you, and I realize that. So I'm going to take it as slowly as possible, but I do want to get through it so you can ask all your questions. So another thing we gave you in your briefing materials was a project summary sheet for each and every proposal. And that allowed us to show you the estimated workload of each item, and that is expressed as a low, medium, or high. And it's based on a percent of full-time equivalent FTE staff that would take to work on that item to conclusion. It also summarizes, again, the public comment received on that particular proposal. It provides a preliminary analysis of the proposal, sort of what it's all about and what it would take. Estimated time of completion. If this was a proposal we have already been working on, we had a good sense of how long it's going to take us to get to the finish line. And then we include a spot on each of those pages to kind of mark the board direction that we ultimately receive. And that's sort of note-taking for yourselves as well. You can feel free to use these sheets to write your own notes.
That is attached to this packet.
Right.
Okay.
There's 40 of them, or 30, yeah, 40. Originally, we had wanted to load up your little binders that we gave you with all of these, but in this time of social distancing, that wasn't realized.
Yes, okay. Individual. Okay, got it.
Thank you, Romero.
So we have homework.
Yeah, you have homework after today. You hadn't gotten to it yet, to read through each
I
of
have
these.
a question.
Go ahead.
Do you have in here the dates of application of all of these issues, whether they're proposed county or proposed citizen, when this was brought to our attention or the county's attention?
We should, I think we have those either in, if it's not on this summary sheets there, it's in your original binder. We tried to put the dates that it originally came to the county.
Is there
If you
any
recall.
chance we could get a list, or at least the date that would go with this list?
Is it in this booklet?
It's in that booklet
Yeah, but
for each one.
I mean, rather than always having to look something up, it'd be nice to be able to know, this came in 16, this one 17.
We can talk about that when we get through to the sheets too.
Yeah, that could
Okay.
be a,
You can write it down there.
Okay, good enough.
Yeah. Good idea.
yeah, and if we're missing any, we can find that out for you.
Okay.
I mean, just so I'm clear, because I was going by in the binder, the two, and other than Cascade Resort, which we actually, was a typo and we amended it to 2016, every single other item was 2018, 19 or later. If these dates are correct.
We have some Grand Mountain Sub-Area Plan, for example, was received, initially started in 2007. It was placed on the docket in 2017. We have all that information in your binder.
It's not totally contained on these pages.
It's not totally contained. It is contained in your binders that we previously gave you
On
for each
the-
and every one.
But for example, now we're on that topic.
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
I have a date listed for one. I'm sorry, were you done though?
No, you're done.
What is the date listed for a citizen initiated?
Mhm.
And it shows 1819,
Mhm.
the CPA number 15.
Yeah,
There would
that,
not have been one prior to that from that individual?
no, that was when it was placed on the official docket. So that individual, for that, there are some of these that have actually, the initial application was received some years ago. You have that information as well. It's in your binder.
Yeah, if you go to the tab on that one, and it says, for example, that one was October 26, 2016.
That's when the application was
Date
received.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
2016.
Not placed on the docket for a couple of years.
Exactly.
And now it's being worked on, or it's in the plan to be worked on, and we have to decide what to do.
You got it.
All right, so those are there.
Sounds clearer now. Thank you.
Okay.
I guess from my perspective, I'd like to keep it as simple as we can and always have those kind of dates and things.
You
right
want a
there.
master list?
Yeah, so we don't have to keep referring back. I just think it gives us a little, it isn't like we don't have quite a few things to keep track of, so it just.
Well, totally, and so just remember, there are two different dates. That's the date of when a board said, work on it, make the list, and a date of when somebody applied for it. So we can make any matrix that we want. We can put all that information on
Both of
there.
those dates would be beneficial to me.
And we have them both.
And it would be
That'd be helpful.
beneficial to have them on one sheet if possible, rather than having to continue to refer back and forth.
We can make you a one sheet that looks like these lists that you have that include the date the application was first received, the date it might have been put on a docket. Easy. We can do that for the next briefing.
Definitely.
Okay, so the point of all these informational sheets are really to give you as much information as you want. If you wanted to be, if a citizen called you, if you had a particular question, you could be able to look at these sheets and understand the scope and scale of the proposal, what it's trying to accomplish, when it first came into the county, how much it's gonna take to get it to the finish line. So that's all the information that you've been provided.
Quick sidebar, this is a lean improvement, as a heads up. When we went through the lean training, one of the things that we recognized was we needed all of the information in one spot for you guys to make a better decision. So this is an output of that opportunity, so thank you.
The one spot was gonna be this binder and we were gonna update it with all these sheets. COVID-19 threw that in a little bit of a spin, so that was harder to do.
Wait, Commissioner, one more?
Well, you probably don't have this information either, but I almost think it's pertinent, and I'm gonna refer to one case. We'll probably get there, but I'm gonna use this as an example because I guess we all received a recent criticism about this particular issue, and it was the Barnett application in which he said that he submitted in 2016.
Correct.
And now, I don't know, I think he said it wasn't even on the list, or it was on the bottom of the list. We got a recent
Right. I remember.
email from
Oh,
that
yeah.
individual.
On the list.
And so, along with that date, I'm wondering if there's any way that we would know from a financial position how much emphasis was put into that by staff, for an example. I mean, did you spend 100 hours, 2 hours, you know, that type of a thing? Because time is money in the real world. And I know in this case, I have no idea what this applicant has tied up in during that whole period of time, but I know Godat and Pantier, a firm here in town, has been working with him on that. I'm sure he's been paying a bill to those folks for a lot of years, and I recall seeing representatives from that firm at some of our meetings as we're discussing this. So I'm trying to put together that information about when somebody applied, how much have they put into this, how much has county staff put into this, what's reasonable, what should we expect, you know, and this business about, well, we're not gonna do anything with it. Well, I think we owe the applicant an answer on that particular question if we're going to continue to have him put money into it. And in this case, it's 4 years later, and here we are not knowing exactly what we're gonna do. So I just use that as one topic, and those type of informative issues would help me make that decision. I mean, if he's got 20,000 in it from his side and you've got 10,000 in it, I'm gonna say, what the heck's going on here, you know?
Well, you make a great point. That's exactly why your decisions on the list that we're talking about right now, and combined with the 5 humans that we have to work on it, are so important. Because those 5 humans can only do so many things on the list. And so when you're making your decisions on what we work on, that should definitely be one of the considerations for sure.
Items on the docket and priority, because the board also establishes priorities
Thank you.
as to what
Yes.
items should be.
Oh, yes, I'm not questioning any of that. But the reality is, in some cases, we allow the applicant to participate in the process in some fashion or another. I know Evergreen College did one, and I think Lakeside did one. Those are just a couple that I'm aware of. And so some do, some don't. I'm trying to get to the bottom of this and how can we make this fair for all parties concerned? And when you take a firm like Panther Godat, for an example, those folks probably know the rules better than we do. How come we can't put some weight on what they bring forward as an application and help that get this process through? I mean, from a business perspective, where time is money, I just can't visualize why we're sitting here 4 years later. And that's just on one
Well,
topic,
this
so.
is, and this is why I brought up CPA 15, Dr. Bill Barnett's, as an example, to find out when it was first came to our attention. But what I'd like, I don't mind coming up with staff time and input. Doesn't matter to me. It does matter to me, but I'm not sending staff out to do research on what they have, put into it with attorney's fees and all that.
No, the applicant can get us
But
that.
I just
The applicant
wanna,
gives us that,
I wanna
right?
address the commissioner's statement just real quick, because getting to the bottom of it, I hear that. That's the same thing that we say, but we use the word transparency. And we are getting to the bottom of it. You're experiencing that right now. Jennifer's been on the job for 5.5 months, so we understand that 4 years has been a long time. But I am excited that we're in this process of transparency, getting to the bottom of it right now.
And I appreciate it.
What you're asking for, you're receiving.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead, Ty.
So I had a confusion on that item too, because it's listed as on the official docket, but then on your summary sheet of staff time, it's listed as an unassigned project.
It
Why
was
wasn't it
unassigned.
be on the assigned project?
Because not all of the things that you put on the official docket in 2018, 2019 were assigned to staff. There wasn't staff to work on those items.
Oh, so we're talking about so us putting on the docket is not assigning CPED the work. This is another thing where whatever we put on the docket then gets there's another level of something happening,
That's the
Yes.
priority.
which is assigning it to a staff member.
And so you, like Ramiro said, you assign the items, that's the list, and then you assign the priority. And so we prioritize what the board says, and if one of those assigned items, we don't have enough humans to work on that item, and it's at the bottom of the list, it's on our list, but unassigned.
Okay, so I'm just predicting that the citizen was confused by these buckets on this page, because unassigned, like so first page is assigned. You flip the page, it says unassigned projects, add to docket, so they're not even on the docket.
So
Then the next bucket says unassigned other, so it's not.
I'm gonna walk through all of those charts and buckets for you.
If we have time.
I'm gonna do it.
All right, thank you, Jenny.
I promise. So staff, it's sort of like the sorting hat in Harry Potter, and you put the hat on and you have things that you're considering when you're looking at trying to
I didn't see
make
the Harry
decisions.
Potter
Okay,
thing.
sorry, it's not about that at all. Never mind.
Don't do Star Wars either.
No, I didn't see that one either, so.
So there are 40 items here. So we have to sort of group them and try to categorize them to help you make your decisions about what's the highest priority and what you want to move forward with. Staff doesn't make those decisions. We're not even trying to make those decisions. We're trying to sort them into categories where you have an easy way to look at them and say, this makes sense, this doesn't make sense, I want to move this one forward and not this one. You have all the data that you need to make those decisions. That's what today's about, and probably the 15th. These are some of the considerations that staff looked at when we were looking at how to sort through these 40 proposals for you. And these considerations are described in the information we provided you. So we looked at the level of public interest in this item. So was there a big public policy issue that the public's really interested in doing, or really interested in not doing? So we described that for you. What's the driver behind this proposal? Is it something we have to do because of a federal law or a Growth Management Act requirement? Is it critical to do it for permit streamlining, to make things easier for folks who are coming in the door to have an easier path to their permit? We looked at staff capacity. We looked at the county's investment, like you're mentioning, Commissioner Edwards, to date, how much staff time has been invested already in these projects. We describe all of these to you in your briefing materials. We look at the potential impact on citizens countywide. Is it a narrow impact in that it will affect 1, 2, 3, a small handful of citizens? Is it going to have a broad impact across the county, a big public policy impact? And we also, and especially in these times, we thought it was relevant to look at it from, is this an economic development issue? Could this particular change be bringing something to the table in terms of more economic development?
I gotta ask him the question.
Sure.
I'm trying to keep this organized for you.
Got 20 minutes.
Okay, and I see Travis back there as one of your backup people. And so I guess this question might be for Travis, but when a citizen brings something forward as a project that they want to do, and the board says, okay, we're going to look at this. And the next year the board says, we're going to look at it. Versus the board says right up front, we don't like it, we don't want anything to do with it. So, go away. Okay, those are the two options. So, at what point do we incur liability? And here's where I'm going with this. We have a situation where a citizen comes forward and he's got, I'm just gonna throw a figure out, I don't know, $10,000 a year he's got invested in this 4-year project. Now, we're talking about time is money, in my estimation, with private industry folks that are trying to make a living. So, at some point, somewhere along the line, do we have an obligation to get back to this applicant and say, well, we've just kind of suckered you along here, but now we're gonna kick you out of the boat. We don't like you anymore. Does that now expose the county to some tremendous liability? So that'd be my question to Travis,
I think
because
you said it like that, you would.
Maybe that can be discussed in an executive session, Commissioner.
Yeah,
well, I'm gonna make another proposal, or at least a discussion point based on that, because if that is true, I think we are doing a terrible disservice to any applicant that comes before the board trying to get something done in which they can further their existence. I can't think, I mean, I'd be the applicant's best witness if litigation was ever to develop on something like that, and there was a potential exposure. Because I think we're making a big mistake. I would much rather take that professional firm that is hired by that applicant and put that firm right in bed with, or across the counter with our own staff, and have them make these proposals and move it forward and have a public hearing and meet the legalities of the Growth Management Act, because that's what we're all trying to work within, is the legalities of growth management. I don't know if we have to deputize that private firm staff person or what it would entail, but we have to do something different.
Travis, do you have an answer?
Well, hey, there's a variety of questions there, Commissioner. I do anticipate, in terms of the first question, which I think was a legal question in nature, which is what level of risk or liability does the county open itself up to when it has items on the official docket and some time elapses, or if they decide to abandon those particular issues? I would recommend we do discuss that in executive session if that is a concern to the commissioners. In terms of whether or not the county can outsource work, as it's done in a couple instances, that's always a option. And we do have a number of cost reimbursement agreements that we use regularly for a handful of instances. I do, however, and I will leave this to Jennifer and her team, but have recognized that just myself alone in developing those agreements and working with staff, there is some overhead costs that there's no such thing as a true cost reimbursement. And this is true in just about any governmental cost reimbursement agreement you enter into. There is some level of overhead or administrative cost, and I wouldn't be the one to calculate that, but that's generally true for most types of agreements of that nature.
And so thank you, Travis. I would say appreciate the input on that from Commissioner Edwards. And that question is on the how we accomplish the research or working on a certain item. Currently, we're talking about the what. So what do you want on the list? The how is an important question, and that's a resource question. But right now, as we're talking about the what, I think I also hear from Commissioner Edwards that you appreciate expediency in government. And if we are to try and get that expediency, I think one of the best ways would be to listen to our staff member go through the rest of the items if possible.
Yeah, okay.
Did you have a comment?
Well, my perspective is that these are changes in law, and there's no citizen has a right to make us change the law. They can make a request, we can think about it, and if they get tired of waiting, they can pull the item off. But the idea that we'd be liable for not speeding through a change of law is, I don't think there's any worry about that whatsoever. And I think we went through this whole discussion last year, I remember, almost the exact same discussion, and that was the legal advice we got, and I don't think anything's changed. And so I think that these are things that we have to decide how much, we want our staff to work on them.
So let's
It's up to
let's get down to the what then.
And it is totally up to you.
Yeah.
So no decisions have been made yet about what goes forward on the 2020
Let me just follow up
docket.
though
So-
with, is it possible then, I'm hearing from Travis that yes, we could take a private individual and bring in here at the expense of the applicant and let them run it through. Well, I don't know why we don't do that. If staff, we can't just keep telling applicants, we haven't got time to work on your project. That could be, we don't like your project, but we're not gonna tell you. I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying, if staff doesn't have time, what do you think the applicant thinks about that? They think we don't care.
Well, these applicants are gonna say, how come you haven't even talked about my stuff today? So we only
Because
have
we
about
never have
15
time.
minutes, so let's go.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's why we have April 15th. So, okay, so if you want to know what we've been currently working on, and it's a lot, you can look at this chart on slide 8. And it really shows you the level of staff investment that's gone into these 18 projects to date. And the green bars will show you kind of how far we are along in our process. And some of them are coming to conclusion pretty soon, which is great. Those would be the dark green bars are showing us that the Rochester sub-area plan, it's going to be coming to you quite soon for a briefing and hearing and action. Amending our our site plan review for critical area determinations. That's been brought to you in a briefing before, and we need to have final public hearing and action on that item. And then the emergency housing ordinance, we have that coming again before you. We need to renew that every 6 months. Those are 3 items that should be coming off if we keep them on the docket. Those will be wrapped up in the coming couple of months. The rest of the items on this first page include ongoing work on our comprehensive plan, which includes our joint plans with the cities. That's a big lift and a big item that we need to continue to work on. The capital improvement plan, we're required to do that update every year. Our Nisqually and Grand Mound sub-area plans are other items that we've invested quite a bit of staff time into and had open houses and meetings with the public on. The lakeside issue about recycled asphalt is something that we've been working on as well. Reviewing our LID ordinance, low impact development, was identified previously as a priority of the county, and we've been working to scope that and to start work on that. You'll be familiar somewhat with the project to amend the zoning district down in Grand Mound around the Maple Lane site to allow for a prison as a special use. We've held an open house on that. It's gone through Planning Commission review and needs to have a public hearing. And then there are several others on the list that you can see we've have a lot of staff work into, including rural accessory dwelling units, which a lot of folks in our community are excited about and OMB is excited about. And we've done a lot of initial staff work on that. So this list is really the stuff that's your kind of, you have some sunk costs here. These are some investments that we've already made as a county. Again, you can push the brakes on anything that you see and substitute in something else.
But I want to address also, this chart that you're seeing is an answer to the commissioner's questions. You'd ask how much staff time goes into these and how far along are we and is anything ever going to come off the list? We took that information, that request from you, and created this chart, which answers those questions. So this is an example of transparency and responsiveness to the board.
So that's the good news. The other side of that is that if you total up the FTEs on these, you'll see in 2020, we're already at 4.46 FTEs. And in 2021, we're almost up to 3 FTEs. So that's just for these 18 items.
And Jennifer says FTEs, full-time employees, I say humans. So those are actual people that are working on these items, and they're already 4.86. Remember, it's 5 humans. The 4.86 is pretty close to 5 in 20.
So the next, oh, go ahead.
The Grand Mound sub-area plan
Yes,
and the Rochester sub-area plan,
yes,
17A, 17B.
right.
How come one is so much farther along than the other? What's that about?
We started it first. The Grand Mound one also is far more complex. It has several land use amendments and zoning request changes that are built in to that update. So it's had a lot more public outreach and analysis that's had to go on. And so it's all about kind of priorities and what you can get to.
Keeping things going.
Keeping things moving. So speaking of that, so here's the next list. So many of these were already on the official docket. And you're right, they weren't assigned because we didn't have any humans to work on them. So they have been sitting on our official docket, some for many years. Some have been sitting on a preliminary docket for many years. This grouping of 15 items are items that are put in here because they have to do with complying with a legal requirement, permit streamlining, or maybe they have economic development drivers. That's sort of how this group was created. You'll see that we include several citizen-initiated amendments in here, including Johnson Smokehouse, which we, using the green bars on this chart, we're sort of anticipating when we'd be able to accomplish the work. And we would be hopeful to do that if you chose to put that forward, to conclude that in 2020. You know, your Thurston PUD has asked for some additional protections to their infrastructure and their easements, to have setbacks from those easements as a public health and safety issue. So that was put on here as well for your consideration.
Did we put that on there, or did you put that on there?
Well, these are all from citizen applications. This is everything we've received.
And the question, you can see the title is add to official docket?
Yeah, these are questions for you. This is just a way to organize the materials. This is not anything but that. So Upcastle is a rezone land use amendment proposal from rural residential to industrial down at the border of Lewis County. Abuts I-5 and railroads and
There's
some
more detail on
industrial.
it.
More detail on each one of these is in your binder. Everything you'd probably ever want to know. And so if you look at the next page, if we just look at all of those so far, and I've talked about, we're just a little bit in excess of the 5 humans or FTEs. It's actually a combination of some humans for 2020, and then we're a little bit over if we look at 2021. We have 6 humans in 2021 because we have some hiring that we haven't been able to do yet for a lot of reasons. So it's still ambitious.
We're working to drive as quickly as possible on all of those items.
So if one of these drops, that gives a little more capacity or breathing room on the backside then with the employees?
Yes,
With the capacity?
for sure.
Okay.
Did you have a question, Commissioner?
Yes,
Well, I mean, my point from before is the only thing out of this back page of unassigned items,
Yeah, I'll flip to that
it's
now.
not, it'd be kind of useful for me to know which ones previous boards put on the dock, even though they didn't get assigned, that a previous board said, that's a priority for us. Because that's not clear, right, from this page?
It's not clear on that particular page.
Okay, but I can cross-reference that with the previous.
Absolutely, or we can
Okay.
do that for you. So on this page
Just
are,
'cause- I'm just making that point, because a
Yeah.
citizen might, going to Commissioner Edwards' point, a citizen might feel understandably upset if they were placed on the docket and then pulled back off of it, if without a good reason.
totally,
Yeah.
totally.
So
And
I kind of want to know, I mean, for me to make my own priorities, I kind of want to know if we've already prioritized them in the past. Even if it wasn't me personally, but the board.
That makes sense.
Right. Right. So let me go through these on this last, and they're only on this last chart because they sort of fit together in terms of they have either a relatively narrow impact in terms of number of folks they might impact, that's arguable, that's a perspective, or they have a large amount of public opposition, or a couple of these items, like review of administrative variances and resource use notice, they were originally, came from staff, or they are low priority for staff to work on these. They're not kind of pressing. But the other items on here have potential, you can put them on the docket just like anything else, that's fine. I want to go through them really quick. I think I've covered the North Point Maytown proposal.
You did, but I have a question regarding that. It says 0.75 FTE or human being. What if, and we've had this with other organizations or self-initiated applicants, oh, we'll supply a staff. What does that mean?
And that's to the question of the how that we've talked about previously. And so that would be a 0.75 for a contractor or our staff. That's the amount of time that goes into that topic. So if we want to get to the how, we definitely can. There is also if we want to get to the how, the management of a contract also takes time. So if you do decide to put it on the list for us to work on, we can explore the different types of hows and whether that FTE internally is less or more, what a contractor looks like. But we don't want to do that work until we know what the what is.
Okay, got that. I just wanted to see if that was a deciding factor and reduces one of our FTEs, 3/4 FTEs, now they're working on this project.
But that can't go to zero.
It won't go to
We'll
zero.
never go
They
to
can
zero.
only pay down to some
Right.
fraction.
There's a lot of process that we would still run, public outreach, notifications, public notices, ordinance stuff. There's a lot still involved. I want to go over, I think the Barnett one on here is something I did want to spend time on. We've been in contact with Dr. Barnett as well. This is something that was previously put on an official docket. So continuing it on the official docket is definitely an option. I wanted to point out that this item needs, it has a little bit of a more kind of medium FTE assigned because it needs careful legal and policy consideration.
It needs what?
Careful legal and policy consideration. The board, a previous board to you, back in 2011, adopted findings that placed a cap on the size of properties that could do a cluster development because they wanted to make sure they were not causing development detrimental to rural character and future agricultural uses. That's language out of an ordinance that was adopted in 2011. And so this proposal is to get rid of that cap on the size of properties. So I just want to be clear that there's a history to this one, and it's going to take, that's why the FTE amount, if you're looking at it and thinking, oh, 0.25 seems, or 0.35 seems a little much compared to other rezones that are more straightforward, it's because it's a little bit more complex. It would be looking at our comprehensive plan policies, our previous findings from the board,
Making sure we're following our own.
making sure we're consistent.
Well, okay, I guess this compounds my concern, and I would hope that council would hear this question as well, Travis. So, in other words, since 2011, we have basically told this applicant, no, we don't want to do what you want to do, but we've allowed him to continue kind of just baiting him along and draining him of money or time.
He applied in
Is that what-
2016. He applied in 2016.
Yeah, but was this brought up in 2011 by a prior board that we couldn't
The
do it?
board took an action to put some limits back in 2011.
Okay,
So at that point, Dr. Burnett didn't have any proposals related to this issue. Fast forward 2016, he wanted to do something beyond the limits imposed by the board back in 2011. And that is the request.
He wants to change it, he wants to change a
Right.
2011 law.
Right.
And he has to do that in 2016.
I don't believe when the board took an action in 2011 was a reaction related to a particular application
I don't think
of
so.
Dr. Burnett because it was none in 2011.
So he's challenging the law.
No,
Yeah.
he likes to change the law. That's what they're
That's okay.
asking. No, not necessarily challenging, it's just asking for a request to lift the cap.
Well, that's our process. And these other, I don't want to give short shrift to the other citizens on this list. The Enclave at Deschutes, the Pet Kennel Standards, the Peace Lutheran, these are all coming from citizens who have problems they've encountered, living their lives, doing their thing with their property, that they want us to change the law to fix. So they have applications they put in, they're on the list for your consideration. We had the public comment period. You can read all of the information you want to about each and every one of these proposals and decide what priorities are for you to legislate as elected officials. That's not for staff to decide. We're just giving you the info. So,
Well, I gotta throw something in here. I want a honest encapsulation of the information and what the pros and cons are. I don't wanna sit there for months trying to read.
That's what this one pager is.
Very good, sir, good.
yeah, that's what we've attempted to provide. But the pros and cons, I have to say, it's kind of your filters to put on the pros and cons. That's not staff's filters. Like, we're not trying to say, oh, that's a good idea, that's a bad idea. We're trying to give you the information where you can make that choice and that decision. That's the whole goal of all of this information and why it's so detailed. So
next
hopefully
steps?
it's helpful. Next steps. I know.
I got through the time.
You
We're
did
done.
it, you did it.
One more.
So one more, a lot of information, here are the next steps. So identifying the board priorities, taking a look at this information and trying to determine what your priorities as a board are. That's kind of the homework part, but we're happy to bring back specific information. I've heard some requests today to help you do that. Holding a second work session, we have April 15th set aside for that. Looks like we'll have to do that, which is good. Directing staff after that to prepare an official docket based on your deliberations and what you want to see on it. And then we would go through the process of having you adopt that official docket at a Tuesday meeting and then do the public noticing for that official docket.
So I would say, Commissioner Edwards and others, this has been helpful as a setup, but if you're thinking about how to accomplish this, back to your question about why don't we just have this in like one page, it's right here. And so I would suggest before we get to next Thursday, you've got these one pagers, the synopsises are right there, the information, recommendation, the staff resources, how much time it would take. Maybe mark a Y, an H, or an N on each one of these pages. And if you want more information on each one of them, we have reams of data. More information, whatever you need, we've got it. But that first, take a look at these pages might be helpful.
And Commissioner Edwards, at the top right, in very small black letters, because it took me a while to figure it out, is the title of each one.
These were meant to my defense.
Well, no, I mean, it just
Yeah.
was like, they all look the same at first.
I know, and they were meant to be the back sides of all these colorful sheets that are in your binder.
Yeah,
Well,
but
this
this
is-
has got them.
This is
Yeah.
COVID-19. We had to
I
adjust.
didn't want him to be struggling around. The titles of them are there, they're at the top right.
Maybe I did not for the two commissioners, this is a huge improvement. Just to summarize,
Massive.
every single item on the docket is very complex on a one sheet.
Okay.
But I have
Thank you.
an administrative or not a clerical, whatever, process question. That is April 15th. I see a schedule for an hour. I'm telling you, that's not gonna be sufficient.
Okay.
So our.
9 to 10, that's not gonna work.
And so our timeline on the decision for you guys telling us what to work on is based on the other guidance that this board has received, is to try and get stuff done as fast as possible. And so our timelines are your timelines. If you need more time, we can build in more time. We have time to build time, I guess.
Is sludge, that's an internal gig that we're doing on sludge at 10?
Impacts of sludge.
Impacts of sludge.
That was a request by Commissioner Edwards to have somebody give a presentation on that.
There's a presentation planned on sludge on property that came out of the Nisqually River application process of putting sludge.
So someone's coming in to do that, or
I
on
guess so.
Skype or
I
something?
guess there is.
Don't be in here, be on Skype, or will it be in here?
We have to work through the details of that.
You know, we can put the sludge off, they'll give us 2 hours to get through this rather than just 1 hour.
Well, I think it's darn important that we look at water quality issues I don't understand why we can chew gum and walk at the same time. I wanna do more, and I wanna hear from legal on our next upcoming briefing, why we can't farm out some of this to professional firms to get some of this done. Other jurisdictions do that. I wanna know why we can't do it. We're not gonna get this stuff done for these people.
Not if we're down in sludge.
Well, we're not gonna get it done if we go at the snail's pace we're going at. I wanna commend staff for doing everything they can do, but look at how long we've been tinkering with all this. I tell you what, if I was one of these people and I'd been told, yeah, and 4 years later, and I got $50,000 invested in it, you'd be hearing from me in some fashion or another. So if we can legally do it, I wanna do it.
But I'm saying, the point in question is logistics, is 1 hour is not enough time
So I'll
for us to get
see
through
if I
this.
can reschedule the presentation, so we have enough time on the 15th.
Which presentation, the sludge?
Yeah,
Okay.
because I think logistically, I think it's gonna be difficult for the presenter to come and give you that briefing.
And then set it up, even if it's Skyped or Zoom.
So
I'm not saying it's not important,
There's
we gotta bang
there's
through
some
this
options
stuff.
the next day, hopefully the individual can accommodate that.
And I'd encourage you to, I'm sorry to assign homework, I've never done this before in my life I'm not a teacher. But looking at these and having some questions ready for us, if you don't understand what we did here or where to get more information, and having an idea of where you might wanna go, that would be helpful for our next briefing if you'd like to move faster.
I tell you, I'm double stumped on, we're moving along on the Maple Lane thing, just boom, 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 because the state asked us, yet we've got citizens, and the Maple Lane thing doesn't make any difference when it comes right down to it. Everybody involved in that gets a paycheck every 2 weeks, whether or not they do anything or not. These citizens that make these applications, their livelihood depends on it, and by golly, I think we need, and we are obligated to help them become successful and not lead them on. I'm not criticizing you folks. I'm just saying my point of view is that we need to do something.
I agree.
We gotta quit just lollygagging around
That's
here.
why I'm giving them more time, doubling the time.
Okay,
Get
well,
it done.
am I hearing that, are you folks interested at all in seeing if we can have professional staff come from these organizations, come in and get the job done that needs to be done?
Process improvement is important to me, yes.
Before we get, I think it will be worth to hear from staff some of the process that we have in place to allow outside individuals to come in and provide the support. So I don't think at this point you can probably say, you support and just go for it and hire somebody to do the work.
I'm not talking about hiring, I'm letting an engineering firm that is doing the work for the citizen also do the work that we need to have done to get this done. This 4 or 5, 6 year stuff, this is absolutely crazy.
And I do appreciate the energy behind your comments, Commissioner. But also, we have to strike a balance, because we cannot give the authority to a proponent of a specific item to go ahead and run with it and come back and give us the end result, because they have a vested interest, obviously, on the outcome.
I'd like to hear that from legal.
Yeah, so, and no, this just.
What we could or could not do.
So that's what I'm saying, the spots yourself and.
Travis, you have homework too.
I also like to maybe acknowledge the frustration a little bit in terms of this is a lot. This is an example of accountability. Difficult news doesn't get better with age. And what our team has done is be transparent and working to provide accountability to say, this is the workload and what do you want to do next? And we appreciate that these are difficult decisions, but we're not gonna hide the ball. We are transparent and we're gonna be accountable, and you set the decisions on the list and the priorities. And Maple Lane is moving fast because you set that as a priority. and we respond to the direction of the commissioners.
This is so much better than
Mr.
17.
Barnett's email, when it came in, fired me up, because I was thinking, wait a minute, I thought this was moving right along and kind of streamlined for him, not for him specifically, but the process was moving along. When I read his email that it started in 2016,
Yeah.
I thought, holy moly, he's got $5,000 or whatever into it so far, more than that, I'm sure.
There's multiple folks who have been waiting a long time for work
I
to
didn't
be done.
understand it, but I understand it now.
Yeah.
I do want to commend you folks for improving it. Yeah, are we there yet? Definitely not, but it is so much better than when I walked in the door in January of 17. From a frustration standpoint, I can't tell you how much I appreciate what you and staff are doing, but it's not there yet.
So we're gonna be adding a couple of dates on some of the reports the
Yeah.
commissioner, you add as to when the board has taken an action not in those items, some of the items on the docket, I believe.
Well,
Previous boards.
I mean, I see, on the docket.
On the
Yeah, we can
Yeah.
just provide that for your next
Yeah.
break.
And with original application time.
Yep.
So we'll extend the meeting on the 15th to have 2 hours.
That's probably good.
Maybe we can utilize the first part of the meeting to have an executive session.
Oh,
To
good idea.
go over that at the beginning, and then can start moving on the rest of the items.
Does our code require us to have these every year?
A docket or the docket discussion?
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 years of work here, and
Yeah.
it seems like that's part of the stringing the citizen along. I mean, we could just make priorities. It's not gonna be till May that we even adopt it. So it's really not 2 years, it's a year and a half. And it seems like that would be less misleading to the citizen. But it might be that the code says we have to do this every year.
No, I think there's some options there, and I'll run back and have that answer for you at the next briefing. But I think there's options. You don't have to allow an application cycle every year for new ideas to come in if you're full up.
Because what I get frustrated with, you're frustrated with folks that don't even get on the docket. I'm frustrated with things that we put on the docket and we still have, last year we were like low impact development, ADUs, all these things
Yeah.
were priorities. I haven't seen a peep out of any of that. So I want to make sure we get the work that we said we wanted, that we actually chose to do, that should get done.
Last year we accomplished a big.
No, I'm just saying, but when we tell citizens that this is my position is a little nuanced from Commissioner Edwards. I don't have a problem when we as a board say, we just have limited resources, this is what we're gonna work on. And I'm sorry, citizen, you don't get to have your law change considered this year. I think that's perfectly okay, appropriate. But when we say that we want something worked on, it's a priority, and staff said that they think they can handle that, then those need to get cleared out. And if it takes extra time, that's why I'm really reluctant. I was the one that asked for all the time thing, because I'm reluctant to just keep piling on you guys, because you have 5 people, and why would you pile 7 new things on you when you haven't had a chance to finish what we asked you to do?
Well, and for us, we want to provide good service to citizens, and we want to get this stuff done for them, probably even more than you do.
I do have to give kudos to staff. Last year, they accomplished the core elements of the development.
The comprehensive plan, it was huge.
And that was an extremely huge success, as you may recall.
Well, if you guys, my recollection is if we'd done this analysis last year, it would have showed that we put way too much, we put 8 or 9 FTEs worth of work on your 5 FTEs is my guess.
And we've
Because I don't remember dialing up these numbers the way we're doing this year, so I appreciate
We've
this.
tried to communicate the resource constraints in the past, but I think that document really gets to the crux of the matter. It's
Yeah.
easy to see.
And the 5 months you've been here have been incredible. And what, 2 years in your position?
It's all Jennifer.
Good leadership as well. Thank you. Anything to wrap up?
Maya.
And
Maya?
Maya.
Oh, good. Senior planner, yes.
Kudos, Maya.
Thanks, Jennifer.
Your screen should be bigger.
Yeah.
Thank you all who joined us on the conference call.
And thank you for watching at home. Are we done now?
We're still live.
We're still live? Okay, well, we got it now. We're done. Thank you. Thank you for watching on April 15th with